Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Six-Path Weeb, and today we're diving into a character who's as clever as she is chaotic. Naruko Senju, the Mischievous Heir. Before we jump in, a quick disclaimer, the content on this channel is purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos, full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's get started. Kushina let out a weary sigh as she rested in her bed, recovering from the recent turmoil. A few days ago, events had spiraled beyond her control, yet she had managed to endure. Though Kurama had been removed from her, she retained enough strength to continue. After all, there was no way she would give up, especially not with a purpose. Two purposes, in fact. Nearby, two cribs held her newborn children, Naruko and Mito Uzumaki. With deliberate care, she rose and approached them. Despite surviving, Kushina still felt the lingering weakness from the extraction of Kurama and its transfer to Naruko. She paused for a moment, her eyes narrowing at the name. She might have been more accepting if it weren't associated with a poorly received book by Jiraiya. Still, names were only labels, they could not diminish the joy of seeing her children. A tender smile spread across her face as she watched them sleeping peacefully. Their small faces radiated innocence and charm. Kushina fought the urge to shower them with affection immediately, allowing them a quiet moment of rest. She silently hoped to maintain control over the unfolding events, especially as the village adjusted to recent revelations. Though Kurama's presence had brought challenges, she knew the people of Konoha would soon redirect their fear and confusion toward curiosity and concern. Unwittingly, they were aligning with her intentions. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of an Anbu, arriving swiftly through sunshine. The blank mask revealed the agent's affiliation with Root rather than the Hokage. Kushina's expression hardened immediately. "What is it?" she asked firmly. "Ma'am. As per your instructions, we have informed the villagers about your daughter being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. News is spreading quickly, and public interest is growing. Our observer on the newly reinstated Sarutobi Hiruzen is preparing to act, as you anticipated. Is there anything further you require?" Kushina dismissed the agent with a wave, watching as they vanished. She turned to the window overlooking the village, a knowing smile curling her lips. "And so, it begins," she murmured softly. "Minato, you were earnest, but perhaps a little naive. Though well-intentioned, your perspective on the world was limited. It is fortunate that my children will be free from misguided influences. The will of fire, while noble in theory, need not dictate their lives." Memories of her own youth stirred within her. She had been chosen, unknowingly, as the next host of Kurama. Her only relative of note had been Mito Uzumaki, the first Jinchuriki of the Fox. Learning of this destiny had ignited a deep sense of frustration in her. To be uprooted from her family and home solely to serve as a vessel for a Baijuu, it was difficult to accept. And yet, she understood the stakes of power and politics within the Hidden Leaf village. Kushina knew that her clan, the Uzumaki, was resilient. Many had survived, scattered across lands far from Konoha. She understood why they had not returned, trust had been betrayed. While pretending to offer support, the village had prioritized its own interests over the well-being of her people. Despite such betrayals, Kushina was determined to protect what remained of her clan. She would safeguard the legacy, knowledge, and heritage that had endured generations. And she had an ally in her partner, Minato Namikaze. With his position as the fourth Hokage, he ensured that her family's heritage would remain intact, preserved for the benefit of those who truly valued it. Even so, Kushina's thoughts carried a quiet resentment. How could a village allow such harm to befall those who had given it so much? How could it claim honor while trampling over those who had once been allies? She remembered the accounts from Mito, the steady decline of the village's integrity, and the increasingly rigid approaches of leaders who prized control over compassion. And yet, Kushina resolved that her children would navigate a different path, one guided by care, wisdom, and resilience, rather than blind obedience. Because of this, it came as little surprise that a certain individual sought to undermine her clan, hoping to prevent the Leaf Village from having one more contender for prominence. Her village, while small, had the potential to become one of the great villages, possibly even surpassing weaker ones. But this individual could not allow that, and so betrayed her clan, ensuring that Konoha would remain the only known home of the Uzumaki lineage while quietly instructing their forces to seize as many resources as possible during the conflict, leaving little for the attackers. Naruko herself took immense satisfaction in dismantling this individual's influence and eventually assuming leadership of the organization known as Root. Moreover, the knowledge and secrets that had been hidden away by her clan's betrayer proved invaluable, offering lessons and insights that Mito had been unable to provide during her lifetime. Yet, securing justice for her clan would not be simple, even with Root under her command. She envisioned holding this village accountable for its past actions, and she planned to do so with the presence of the child of their revered hero, Minato, by her side. Not that anyone would suspect the truth, Naruko was not truly Minato's child. As a pure Uzumaki, she would never align herself with anyone outside of her bloodline without compelling reason. Instead, she had taken the DNA of Hashirama Senju to preserve the strength and legacy of her lineage, ensuring the next generation would inherit both power and wisdom. Initially, Naruko had been uncertain about how to continue the Uzumaki line. Few members of her clan remained, and finding suitable allies was no easy task. There was a Uzumaki in the Rain village, known for extraordinary abilities, but he had founded his own organization and was unlikely to leave. Additionally, Naruko had gleaned from intelligence gathered through careful observation that this individual's affections were already committed elsewhere, making collaboration impossible. Realizing that relying on others would not suffice, Naruko turned to the most unlikely of partners, Orochimaru of the Sannin. This renowned scholar and researcher had been exploring ways to enhance human potential using Hashirama's DNA. Their alliance began with caution and mutual respect, gradually building into a partnership founded on trust. To ensure their cooperation, they forged a sacred pact, binding themselves to uphold their commitments and support one another in their respective goals. Through this agreement, Orochimaru would assist Naruko in revitalizing the Uzumaki clan, while she supported his research, creating a mutually beneficial arrangement of unprecedented significance. With their collaboration underway, Naruko sought to create the foundation for the new Uzumaki lineage by using her own eggs, integrating Hashirama's DNA to ensure compatibility and potential strength. Initial experiments using surrogate eggs yielded limited success, as the genetic compatibility was insufficient. However, when Naruko's own Uzumaki DNA was used, the resulting child demonstrated extraordinary potential, combining the strengths of both lineages and laying the groundwork for a promising future. This child represented not only the continuation of the Uzumaki clan but the hope of an extraordinary legacy capable of achieving greatness. Before Kusina proceeded to use her own ovum, she requested one additional genetic compatibility test using material from Mito Uzumaki and Tobirama Senju. Orochimaru, puzzled, inquired why she preferred those two donors. Kusina explained that her earlier analyses had shown that, although Mito and Hashirama had descendants, those children, and even Tsunade, had primarily inherited exceptional chakra regulation and regenerative aptitude rather than a broader suite of combined attributes. Intriguingly, genetic samples from Mito and Tobirama demonstrated an unusually high compatibility with one another. Tobirama's unparalleled mastery of water techniques suggested that when an individual had a predominant elemental affinity, their facility for that element could reach extraordinary levels. Had he possessed multiple native affinities, his control might have been even more comprehensive. The technical plan was complicated. Orochimaru would need to use Mito's genetic profile to override a stored ovum, effectively producing a close genetic copy, and then incorporate Tobirama's genetic contribution. He had performed only a few preliminary trials with Tobirama's lineage, so the procedure carried significant experimental risk. Kusina argued that success would enable the restoration of lost lineages and the strategic preservation of critical hereditary traits. Convinced by her reasoning, Orochimaru accepted the assignment. The process proved delicate, but ultimately productive. When Orochimaru presented the result, Kusina approved implantation. Given security concerns, including surveillance by Root operatives who reported that Sarutobi was investigating unusual activity, there was no safe external location in which to place the embryos. The decision was made to implant the embryos into Kusina for natural gestation. She acknowledged the inherent risks of carrying such powerful entities but judged the plan necessary for their protection. Over the ensuing months, Kusina and Orochimaru prepared covertly. Orochimaru continued his research until it became unsafe to remain. He took measures to conceal Kusina's involvement. Kusina, for her part, leveraged her influence within Root to gather resources for the future rehabilitation and resurgence of the Uzumaki lineage. She also instructed Orochimaru to alert her should he encounter any surviving Uzumaki, offering collaboration in exchange for intelligence support. Inevitably, Orochimaru was discovered and withdrew from the village, and Kusina suspended direct communication until conditions permitted re-establishment. Kusina's arrangement with Minato had been strategic. She had cultivated his trust and positioned herself to ensure her children would inherit the necessary knowledge and protection. While the pregnancy introduced physical and emotional challenges, fluctuating moods, discomforts, and unusual cravings, she embraced the experience as a real opportunity to raise children rather than rely solely on laboratory techniques. The intelligence her network amassed would, she hoped, secure a future for the Uzumaki name. Unexpectedly, a masked intruder appeared during the critical period surrounding the birth and forcibly separated Kurama, the powerful sealed entity, from Kusina. The separation unleashed a massive energetic surge that destabilized the village's systems and infrastructure. Kusina was alarmed by the disruption and by the threat it posed to her newborn. She had previously learned a complex restoration technique known as Genesis Rebirth from Tsunade and used that knowledge to stabilize herself and ensure her child's immediate safety. Though physically diminished and emotionally shaken, Kusina focused on safeguarding her offspring. In the ensuing confusion, Minato intervened to protect the newborn, Naruko. Minato's actions prevented further immediate harm to the child, but he was subsequently rendered unavailable in the aftermath and could not be relied upon in the short term. Kusina regretted prior miscalculations that had underestimated the possibility of such an intrusion. She resolved to pursue accountability and to ensure adequate safeguards for her child going forward. With Kurama now sealed within Naruko and with Minato absent, Kusina focused on long-term objectives, raising Naruko to be resilient and knowledgeable, securing allies, and planning a careful exit from the village when the time was right. She intended to pursue redress through measured, lawful, and strategic channels rather than through retaliation. Over time, Kusina hoped to restore the Uzumaki legacy through education, diplomacy, and discreet reconstruction of her clan's heritage. Kusina sat at her desk at Root headquarters, reviewing the reports submitted by her agents regarding their missions. She had dispatched them to search for any surviving members of the Uzumaki clan across the nations, but so far, the results were minimal. 6 years had passed since the Kyubi incident, which had caused widespread upheaval and allowed her to discreetly place agents in other countries. Despite her careful planning, she had yet to find many Uzumaki survivors or recover the clan artifacts that had been scattered during the attack. She was not entirely surprised, as Danzo's operatives had been meticulous in collecting valuable items while ensuring that anything left behind would not fall into other hands. What frustrated Kusina the most, however, was that Orochimaru seemed to have better luck locating Uzumaki than she did. While she was pleased that more of her clan's people had been found, she could not ignore the subtle pride with which Orochimaru shared his successes. The challenge, of course, was bringing these Uzumaki safely into Konoha without causing suspicion. Fortunately, Jiraiya's network of spies had learned from a discreet informant that a group of orphaned Uzumaki girls was about to be relocated for adoption. Though Kushina was uneasy about using such a strategy, it was the safest way to ensure their smooth arrival in Konoha. To prevent any distress, the children would be calmed and gently guided through the process, ensuring their comfort throughout. When Jiraiya reported the situation to Sarutobi, it became clear that the village leadership could not remain unaware of the discovery of additional Uzumaki. Hiding them would have been impossible, especially considering the clan's extraordinary abilities to sense chakra. Sarutobi understood Kushina's cautious approach. Her loyalty to the village was complex, shaped by her past experiences and her protective instincts toward her children. She had no desire to surrender control over her family or compromise their safety, making any attempt to manipulate the situation particularly delicate. Kushina herself was keenly aware of her own value to Konoha. Her unique abilities, including chakra chains, mastery of the Rasengan, and the Hiraishin technique, made her a formidable figure in her own right. The village's reliance on her skills, coupled with her children's potential, gave her considerable leverage. Sarutobi's challenge was balancing the need for Uzumaki allies in the village while respecting Kushina's autonomy. Though he hoped to cultivate loyalty among her children toward Konoha, every effort risked backfiring, much to Kushina's quiet satisfaction. Ultimately, Sarutobi faced a difficult decision: either attempt to retain some Uzumaki children within the village to secure future alliances or entrust them fully to Kushina to rebuild trust and strengthen bonds with the clan. Kushina, however, had the advantage of foresight. She knew any attempts to conceal or control the situation would fail. She presented a calm and measured exterior, allowing Sarutobi to believe he had some influence, while carefully protecting her children and their interests. Kushina's household now included new additions: a young girl named Karen, roughly Naruko's age, and a slightly older girl named Honoka. Though she outwardly maintained a neutral demeanor toward the villagers, her focus remained on safeguarding her family and ensuring their growth under her guidance. As for Minato, Kushina regarded him with indifference. While his abilities were notable, especially his exceptional affinity for nature chakra, she saw little reason to admire him personally. His influence on her children had been minimal, which suited her plans perfectly. Without the village imposing its ideals through him, her children were free to develop under her careful guidance. Though she recognized that Minato's presence could have complicated matters in the past, she was satisfied that he no longer posed an obstacle. In the end, Kushina's priority remained the same: protect her children, maintain control over their futures, and ensure that the Uzumaki legacy continued securely and safely, guided by her wisdom and careful planning. But returning to Karen and Honoka, while both were girls, this actually aligned perfectly with her plan for Naruko to become the central figure of the revitalized Uzumaki clan. Considering that Hashirama was technically her ancestor, the strategic potential was clear. With Naruko being likely to awaken the wood release, combined with the extraordinary chakra she possessed and the full power of Kurama within her, it was almost certain that she would surpass even Hashirama and Madara. Even if Naruko did not pass down the wood release to any future descendants with Mito, Karen, or Honoka, their children would still possess exceptional potential, ensuring the clan's resurgence over time. By then, she intended that no external force could jeopardize her family's future. To achieve this, not only Konoha but all other hidden villages would need to be significantly destabilized, leaving them preoccupied with their own governance. With her network of informants, she was confident this would be manageable. Yet, as she pondered her clan's future, her thoughts drifted to Kurama. While her relationship with the Baiju'u had never been ideal, she had hoped to reach a neutral understanding, which was an improvement from the initial animosity. However, when Kurama had acted aggressively toward her daughter, Naruko, especially after being freed from the influence of the fake Madara by Minato, such behavior could not go unaddressed. The challenge was determining how to correct the Baiju'u's behavior without interfering directly with Naruko, who was not yet prepared to comprehend the full circumstances. She needed an alternative method to guide Kurama toward making amends with Naruko. Though a part of her felt conflicted, recognizing this could result in Kurama being subordinate to her daughter, her protective instincts and sense of justice outweighed these concerns. While transforming Kurama into a female form to assist with the clan's revitalization seemed appealing, executing such a plan was complex. She would need to transfer a portion of Kurama's consciousness while maintaining sufficient chakra within Naruko, and also craft a physical body capable of sustaining the Baiju'u's power. Creating a female body was feasible. With her guidance, Orochimaru had already perfected the technique of crafting durable vessels for consciousness transfer. However, the extraordinary chakra of a Baiju'u required a body of exceptional resilience, achievable only through Senju or Uzumaki genetics. Previous cases, such as Ginkaku and Kinkaku, had survived exposure to Kurama's energy, but their bodies were unavailable for study. The plan would demand careful assurance of control, as the new body would be resistant to conventional chakra chains and the wood release Naruko would inevitably master. Alternative methods, like Danzo's crude but effective techniques, could potentially offer solutions. Her contemplation was interrupted when the door to her study opened without warning. She smiled at the familiar figure entering, someone allowed such informality. Standing at 5 feet 3 inches, with fair skin, long black hair framing her face, and deep black eyes, was Mikoto Uchiha, matriarch of the Uchiha clan. She wore a modest dark purple blouse and a plum-colored skirt, complementing her graceful silhouette. "Mikoto, what a pleasant surprise. Is this a matter of importance, or a social visit?" Kushina asked, reclining in her comfortable chair. Mikoto exhaled a tired sigh and settled onto the sofa. "I cannot fathom how you manage leadership en route, Kushina. Even guiding the Uchiha clan tests my patience." "Well, root members are straightforward to direct, though your clan's emotional nature does pose unique challenges," Kushina replied. "With Fugaku and the older extremists no longer influencing the clan, it should be more manageable for you, yes?" "Indeed. Not having to contend with their interference is a relief," Mikoto said, releasing an exasperated breath. "However, some still resist my leadership, and their adherence is not universal." Kushina frowned in sympathy. She recalled the turbulence following the Kyuubi incident and the betrayal that had endangered her family. Without Mikoto's support, her options would have been far more limited, as root alone could not suffice. "When you agreed to join me, Mikoto, I warned that the path would not be simple. Challenges will only grow, particularly with the pretender Madara still at large. Are you confident in your ability to navigate what lies ahead?" Kushina inquired, arching a brow. "Of course I can, Kushi-chan," she said with a gentle sigh. "It's just that. I wish things hadn't become so complicated. When we were younger, and you were just starting to plan your ideas, everything seemed so much simpler. I knew it wouldn't be easy when I joined you, but still. With that masked Uchiha, the Uchiha clan as a whole, everything you told me about Danzo's schemes, and this Akatsuki organization of missing S-rank ninjas, plus everything we still have to do." She paused, trailing off. Kushina frowned at her. She understood that Naruko's goal to protect and support her friends and restore balance was not an easy one, but Naruko was determined to see it through. Thanks to the deep bond they shared, and the evidence Naruko had shown to reveal the truth about Konoha, Kushina didn't need to convince her friend forcefully. Naruko had joined willingly, and that trust was invaluable. Without Naruko's intervention, Mikado might have been forced into a life where she had little control over her choices. With Naruko's help, however, Mikado was able to avoid such restrictions. To maintain appearances while ensuring freedom, Mikado found a solution that allowed her to follow her own path while keeping family matters balanced. The stress of all this must be weighing on you, isn't it, Mito-chan? Kushina said softly, leaning closer to offer comfort. Mikado, slightly embarrassed but grateful, smiled at her friend. Kushina, we have to be careful. We can't forget about our responsibilities. And the children. Kushina chuckled lightly. Mikado, I know. We just need to find a moment for ourselves amid everything else. You've always managed things wonderfully. And don't worry, everyone is safe and looked after. Our kids are being watched, and Itachi is helping out as well. Seeing Mikado relax, Kushina smiled warmly. She and her friend shared a quiet moment together, enjoying the comfort of their trust and the strength of their friendship. Dear YouTube family. This is all for now. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel to continue this journey with me. Your support fuels creativity, sparks new ideas, and keeps this community thriving. Every view, every comment, and every share is a step forward on this adventure we're building together. Thank you for being part of it. With gratitude. 6 Path Weeb.